Well, I'll tell you what, folks, if this does feel like deja vu again, here we are. And it is, I don't know. The Bears are 3-0. What else can we say? It has gotten to this point. We are here. And for as wild of a game as we could possibly imagine, again, somehow the Bears are 3-0 to start the 2020 season. Welcome in to the Bearfront Podcast Hurry Up Recap of week number 3. I'm Steven Johnson. He is Nick Bidding. Nick, again, I was not anticipating, I mean, this is at halftime, by the end of the third quarter, that we would be sitting here talking about a 3-0 Bears team, but yet here we are.
This team sucks out loud and is 3-0. Like, it's unbelievable to me. Just, I mean, Foles came in and played great, and we'll talk about that down the line. But this is just not a good football team. They're not well coached. They're undisciplined. They have major questions at the most important position in all of sports. They have no run game to speak of. Their defense doesn't create a ton of turnovers. It's not dynamic. But the Bears are 3-0 because the teams they've played are combined 1-8. And that's what
whatever it takes, right?
Arizona today. I don't know. It is what it is, I guess.
I mean, there's so many different places that we can start here in terms of this game, and it's crazy again to think that. Again, for as chaotic of a beginning of this game, we're talking, Calvin Ridley getting the deep bomb, beating the coverage, setting up the Falcons for an easy touchdown. Cairo Santos missing a field goal. And again, I think that we had a great tweet early on. It was death taxes and missed Chicago Bears field goals. I mean, really, those are the things in life that we can always rely on. And then just over the course of the game, I mean, let's get something straight here. I think for a lot of people today, specifically the way that it all went down, and talking about the elephant in the room, the fact that Mitch Trubisky got benched today was a stunning turn of events. I don't think anybody really anticipated the leash to be this short on him. And it's not like he was that horrific. You could argue that he was worse last week after he got off to the hot start. And you could really argue week 1 against Detroit until he picked up the fourth quarter that he played worse then. And all of a sudden, here comes Nick Foles, the injection that apparently this team needed. Sans the offensive line, who just played like complete dog trash all day long. I'm looking at you, Charles Leno Jr.
Again, turning an inside rusher free for no apparent reason.
Yeah, it was unbelievable to hear just what went into this and hearing the aftermath of everything. Because I mean, again, you mentioned. The running game today was non-existent, just absolutely non-existent. And this is against a defense that has not been that great. As we all know, they're giving up over 100 or 450 total yards per game. It's not a great thing. And then you come out here and you have David Montgomery, 14 carries for 45 yards today. He really didn't do a whole heck of a lot on the ground. Tariq Cohen only had 2 carries. Cordero Patterson had 4 carries. So double what Cohen had, and he's going to have a lot more.
Ryan Dahl was on my TV screen again for some reason. Split out wide. They had an all-in split out wide. Why he's on my screen, I don't know, but he was.
But again, just everything, it was such a hodgepodge today. Just such a hodgepodge. And it's weird to, have all of this, I don't know, come full circle so quickly with all the hype that we had about just everything this offseason and knowing that Mitch had to step up. And then even after the game, Matt Nagy saying he's not going to commit to Nick Foles as the starter. And it's like, after that, what kind of mindset do you need to have in order to go back to Mitch against the Colts next Sunday? Like that seems like such a straightforward question, given what he did out there in getting your team back from 16 down to win the game.
I mean, a lot to touch on there. I guess I'll start where he closed off with Nagy. The more Matt Nagy talked today after the game, the less and less I respected him. Just as it went on, he talked about the decision to go to Foles and away from Mitch was this just gut instinct that he had after the interception. That's not a gut instinct. Your quarterback threw a terrible interception. You hadn't been moving the ball. You hadn't been putting points on the board. Mitch looked really uncomfortable all day. He wasn't trusting his eyes. He just wasn't seeing stuff. The one play that always jumps out to me is he missed Cohen on Cohen was wide open on a crossing pattern underneath, and Mitch took a sack on the play, and Cohen was open for about 15 yards running straight across the field, and Mitch either didn't trust his eyes, didn't see Cohen. He just looked really uncomfortable when he wasn't throwing kind of, 1, 2, 3, maybe a 5-step drop and getting the ball out to Robinson on a slant. He just looked really uncomfortable. And maybe it's just a symptom of the week, but to the larger point, I don't know how you can go back to Mitch next week. I really don't. It doesn't make any sense. Now, granted, that's probably Nagy being very coach speaky and not, how the Bears are, the whole cloak and dagger routine that permeates the organization. So that's probably some of it, but realistically and logically, I mean, this has to be, barring a Foles injury or Foles turning into the worst quarterback in the NFL, this has to be the realistic end of the Mitch Trubisky era in Chicago. It just has to be.
Right. I mean, I think the breaking point for me, there was the play where Jimmy Graham was cutting across the field on a slant route, and again, it was the perfect example of how Mitch is not reading defenses, specifically zone defenses, properly. I mean, you had the nickel sitting there just waiting for the ball. Any competent quarterback that can find success in the NFL should have seen that defender sitting there, and instead throws it right into his path. And it blew my mind that something that, and it wasn't even like there was heavy traffic in the air. It was literally Jimmy and the defender. That's it. And I mean,
well, and we were messaging during the game. Okay, my allergies are terrible too. They'll probably, I'll probably get one in before the show's over. But what also we were messaging during the game, and another thing that interception is a symptom of, and it's not just Mitch's inability to read zone defenses in year 4. He's not accurate down the field. He missed a lot of shots down the field today that you have to connect on. And if defenses don't respect you down the field, they can sit and jump those underneath routes because they're not worried about you hitting balls down the field. And Mitch missed at least 2 today. I know there was a big one it was Miller, right? It wasn't Mooney that he missed Miller on that overthrow. And you can't miss those. As soon as that ball fell incomplete, it reminded me of the Taylor Gabriel miss last year. That's exactly what that play is designed for. That's the matchup you're wanting. Everything, you have to hit that throw. And in year 4, it's either going to happen or it's not. It hasn't happened for him, and it's time to move on. Foles came in, and Zach and I were messaging back and forth. Foles threw some big boy throws. He had some throws in between cover 2. The touchdown pass to Miller was unbelievable. He, defender in his face, hits him in the chest, and still puts that ball out in front of Miller for him to run under. I mean, that's a high level NFL throw, and I just it's got to be over for Mitch. It's got to be done.
Yeah, I mean, I think just based on everything that we saw there, again, you could argue that Nick Foles threw 5 touchdown passes today with the way that
I made that point to you in our thread. I said, Foles kind of thrown 5 touchdowns today. He got one taken away by a review, and Anthony Miller dropped the other one.
Yeah, and I mean, you can always make the argument that the Atlanta Falcons are always good for blowing a big lead, as
Yes.
that has become the franchise MO here over the last few years. But let's talk about that whole sequence with Nick coming in and that drive that led to that interception that was unfortunately an overturned call in the end zone with Allen Robinson. This is the second straight week that we've seen almost almost an exact carbon copy
Mhm.
of how that ball came down. I, for one, am kind of shocked that it was overturned, because in my mind and looking at the play, A-Rob came down with that ball. He got a foot down, he got a helmet down, and then and only then was it apparent on the video that he had lost control of the ball to the defender, to Denard. Uh, the fact that they overturned it, and they brought in Mike Pereira on Fox afterwards, and he kind of said the same thing. He's like, the video evidence doesn't clearly show, and it kind of makes you wonder, what did Jerome Boger see? And again, terrible, terrible officiating crew today.
Yeah, it was
By
really
all
poor, really
means, I
poor.
mean, we could go there. We could go to the roughing the passer penalties, where it's like, I don't know what they expect a defender to do to get after the quarterback, especially with the way the plays developed. It was just a day where nothing seemed to really go correctly for the Bears. And uh, getting back to that play, though, that again is just something that Robinson needs to come down with, uncontested, no doubt. Come down with the ball like that. That's, you are the guy. You are the alpha receiver. You need to overpower your guy and come down with that score. Plain and
There,
simple.
that score to me, and it was one of those deal. And I guess that not that score, that interception, as it ended up being, that was one of those plays where if it was ruled an interception, it would have stayed an interception, and if it was ruled a touchdown, it should have stayed a touch. I didn't see anything there to overturn it. I was talking to you, and I said I think the fact that it was ruled a touchdown will save our butts, and I ended up
Right.
being wrong because I really expected it to stay. I looked at the replay a few times. I could see how that might be, but I don't think you have enough. Kind of what Prayer says. I don't think there's enough there to overturn it. And I'd love to hear the explanation. The only way it makes sense is if they somehow instituted, or he correctly or incorrectly interpreted the continuation of the catch rule, where Robinson has to hold on to that ball through the process of the catch, and Denard actually ends up taking it away from him during the process of the catch. It's not a defense of why it was overturned, but I'd love to hear the explanation of why. And I don't recall hearing one or seeing one from the league, or even from any Bears staff, as far as the explanation they got on it. But that's the only possible realm that I can see that getting overturned to what it was.
Right. I mean, the NFL officiating organization might talk about it tomorrow. They
Mhm.
tend to do that with some plays during the week. We'll see if that does end up happening, just to get a little bit more insight as to why that decision was made. We'll have to see. But past that, because I mean, really, you look at that second quarter overall. I tweeted about this too. There were three separate points in the second half, specifically the fourth quarter, where the Falcons had a 99% chance of winning the game. And it just all, just the way that it all came together for Nick Foles to go out there to string together, again, some rather crazy drives, but the fact that he was able to get it done, staying in the pocket, and all of a sudden you're also seeing guys that weren't necessarily being utilized to their full potential as weapons, which I think was the biggest takeaway for me,
Mhm.
is that it wasn't always locking on to Allen Robinson and, okay, maybe you got a guy here, you got a guy there. There were some big money throws, specifically Jimmy Graham. He came
Mhm.
alive. The one play that sticks out, I'm seeing one of them here in our comments. The one that was thrown into triple coverage, and somehow Jimmy Graham came down with it. Not the greatest throw by Nick Foles. I do agree with you on that. The fact that Jimmy Graham came down with it, a miracle. You could also argue another miracle, the fact that Allen Robinson scored a touchdown
Yes.
on that breakaway just because of just piss poor tackling. But even Anthony Miller, again, a guy dropped a touchdown. You cannot drop those catches. Or drop those throws by any means. The fact that happened, that was a gut punch. I almost thought it was over at that point. But then to come back and to watch Foles hit him for that go-ahead score, just a beauty of a throw. And again, you'd mentioned with the defender lodged in his ribs, and still getting that off in perfect accuracy. I mean, that is the type of play at quarterback that this team has been missing. Plain and simple. Like that summed it up right there.
It has to, and the bringing up the point about people coming alive. Robinson stayed involved in the passing game, but you had Graham. I think Foles. I think he hit Mooney on a beautiful throw in between the cover two on the near side of the screen. I'm pretty sure that was Mooney. Obviously, the touchdown pass to Miller. It just seems like Foles has a better command of the offense and sees things a lot better than Mitch does. And this is super meatball-y, but I'm going to throw it out there as an example of it. Is very rarely would you see Mitch on the sideline talking to his receivers and kind of walking through, having kind of those deep level conversations that occur on the sideline. And all of a sudden Foles comes in the game and they keep cutting to the sideline. You see Foles talking with Wims and Robinson and Graham, talking about, hey, if coverage breaks this way, you break this way, I'll see you. Those are the type of conversations, for better or for worse, I've never seen Mitch have. That doesn't mean they're not occurring. Straight up, that doesn't mean they're not occurring, because I hated that with Cutler. He's sitting there by himself. Yeah, but you saw 5 seconds of a 60-minute game of what he's doing. But what I will say is I've never seen that conversation with Mitch, and that was pretty jarring to me.
Yeah, it was. I don't know, like just the whole.
That's very much more in the abstract.
Right, like just everything about the sidelines today was just kind of bizarre, and the way that they were cutting everything up and just seeing who is interacting with who and who was doing what. It just, nothing really ever felt, I don't know what, like put together. Like even when like Nick Foles even like was coming out for it, it was just like, oh, this is happening type thing.
This visored man is ready to go into the game.
Yeah, and then the visor
took the visor off.
Yeah, the visor was a very short-lived experiment. The Nick Foles Bears are
real quick. Speaking of the sidelines, how odd it is that Mitch said he was told by the offensive coordinator he wasn't going back in the game. That wasn't a conversation him and Nagy had. That just seems really odd to me.
Yeah.
that Nagy wasn't the one to approach Mitch about it.
Yeah, I mean, and Mitch even saying like it came out of nowhere. He wasn't expecting it. I know, again, a lot of us weren't expecting it to happen. It's just like
than I thought.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's the other thing here too, is that there is that sense of urgency by the Bears coaching staff that we may not have necessarily realized actually exists, that we really didn't give them credit for, and assuming that they're that hard-headed that they weren't willing to make that kind of switch. And again, here we are in a very shocking situation in the fact that they made the move. It did amplify, through that team and gave them a boost. I mean, you could even argue too that the defense, they were not on their A game throughout a lot of today. They got torn up on the ground pretty well as through the air. Calvin Ridley had some really good catches against the secondary, and really you could point to Nick Foles coming in, and they kind of picked it back up and said, okay, we need to go out there, we need to get our job done, and they did in that fourth quarter. It wasn't until I believe the last possession or the second to last possession of the Falcons in the fourth quarter that Matt Ryan even had a completion at that point. So I mean, he was really getting shut down by all means. And again, I don't want to get into this too much, but the amount of holds that the Falcons got away with on Khalil Mack today drove me up a wall. It seemed like every time he got close, he had his hands up in some really awkward in like some really awkward pose because the tackles were doing whatever they could to make sure that Matt Ryan could stay upright. But again, it's one of those things, and we talked about this before we came on here as well, that Matt Nagy's whole talk about it in terms of, he said he did what's best for the team, but then instead of just saying like, listen, we had to make a play. Mitch wasn't playing great. We felt like we needed to make a decision. He's got to like make things more complicated.
It was a gut feeling. It was like this vision came to him, and it was this internal gut feeling. It had nothing to do with just having seen Mitch throw a terrible interception and the offense is moving the ball. It's just this gut reaction that he had. Just shut up. Your quarterback was playing terrible, and you changed him. You benched him, and you brought in somebody else that you thought you could do better. That's it. It wasn't some gut reaction. You saw something bad going on, and you changed your mind on it.
And like that's all we need. It's all we need is just some honesty here.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, a little bit on the defense. The linebackers had a terrible day.
They did.
Danny Trevathan early on got just picked on a lot. Roquan was a ghost. Trevathan on the first long touchdown run of Atlanta's just looked like he gave up 1 second. It looks like he got blocked and just gave up on the play. He had a really, really bad game. Roquan was a ghost. I mean, it wasn't a good day for that second level of the Bears defense. I thought Mack played fairly well. He was disruptive. Quinn's still quiet, but I think he's coming back off that ankle. Hicks had a great day. The one thing I wish Pagano would stop doing, stop dropping Khalil Mack into coverage. Just stop. No, I want him going forward towards the quarterback.
He still came up with some really good plays.
He did. I just don't. This isn't an issue with Mack. It's an issue with Pagano. Stop dropping Khalil Mack into coverage. You have guys for that.
But do you? Like, yeah. like that's the thing. I mean, Khalil Mack played better than I think you got to give him credit for when it came to dropping back in coverage. I mean,
I'm not saying he's bad at it.
I know, but compared to what we're accustomed to from that second level today, I mean, he did a pretty decent job. I'm going to bring this up as well because Chubbs, I agree on this. If I can find this, Barkevius Mingo. There's a reason that he has played in so many places and never really stuck as that first round pick. I wholeheartedly agree, but the aggravating thing about this, and we saw James Wouters out there quite a bit today too. That
Iggy was in on the touchdown pass to Atlanta. He got scored on that. I was shocked to see him on the field.
It's a very thin group, which is very troubling. It's a very troubling thing when you get past the top few guys that this defense has to offer. And unfortunately, that's just the way that this team is built, given how they racked up, getting a salary cap situation around some of their top defensive players. And really, I think you're going to see this pretty much every year as long as Ryan Pace is in place, where you're going to bring in these 1-year contract guys and hope that somebody sticks and kind of rotate them out and hope for the best. But I wholeheartedly agree. Not a great day from that group whatsoever. Really, you look at the whole box score and how things came together. I mean, Eddie Jackson, not a great day at all. He got beat on coverage a few times and really kind of out of position as well in the run game. It was a weird day. It was a really weird day for Eddie. Something that was honestly out of character from what we're accustomed to seeing out of him. And I kind of want to know, just like, was there a feeling of something off? Like, were the Falcons doing something that, got you, off balance and out of sync? Like, what exactly was it? Because I'm trying to think back to another game where we saw him play like that, and I'm honestly struggling.
It was a rough, yeah, it was just a rough day. It was weird. It was whenever he was on your TV screen, it was him doing something bad, which is very out of character. That was very jarring. Is you were ready to scream at Gibson because their numbers are close enough, and then you realize it was Eddie Jackson doing something wrong, and that's just that kind of broke my brain a few times. What I will say is, even great players have bad games, and this is going to be a weird season, and you're going to see some stuff that is out of character. Just it's got to be really odd for these guys to go out there with no crowd, no juice, and just try to play a football game and lock in. So that it's going to affect different people differently, and it might affect them differently week to week. So we do have to be prepared for that a little bit. Where maybe Eddie, this is a game where it's an average game because he gets juiced up on adrenaline in front of the crowd, but today there isn't one, so his average game that he kind of covers up turns into a bad game, and that's just kind of be stuff that you see throughout the course of the year.
Right. And again, the best you can do is just bounce back next week. The Colts taking on the Bears in week 4. Colts coming off a big victory over the Jets, who are just a hapless group when it comes to NFL football. I mean, just there's nothing nice you can say about the Jets. Like there just isn't. They are a rugged group, as Adam Gase is. I don't know. I don't even know who's going to be the first coach fired this year, because Adam Gase and Dan Quinn are really neck and neck and doing whatever they can.
Might have saved his job today. Yeah, there was a really good 3-horse race going for whoever. I think now it's down to 2 for at least a week.
Yeah, it's.
But we'll see what happens. Patricia's still got a really good shot at being one of the first to go, though.
He does. I'm still kind of shocked that the Lions beat the Cardinals today. It makes the Bears look a little better in some shape or form.
Yeah, exactly. The 3 teams we beat at least have one win.
Yeah, and now the 2-1 Colts, a 500 over 500 team, are coming to play the Bears. We don't even know what to expect at this point, because there's actual competence coming to a Bears opponent in this one. Again, Phillip Rivers making his first year as starter for the Colts. Again, a very good offensive line. So the defensive line obviously going to have their hands full in this one next Sunday. Jonathan Taylor, a little bit of a rough start to the year. Wasn't the greatest on the ground today. But also some very speedy receivers. You have T.Y. Hilton, you have Michael Pittman, and Mo Alley Cox, who has apparently turned into Phillip Rivers' new tight end security blanket these last 2 weeks, who has been a very reliable guy. And again, going back through the history of Phillip Rivers' career, God, I don't even know how many years it's been now. 17, I believe, he's been in the league. He's always going to go after that tight end position, and it gives me some cause for concern, kind of similar to how this week was giving me some concern, especially after that early Hayden Hurst touchdown. I think, oh God, here we go.
Actually, the game started off exactly to your script, and the script we kind of talked about, where the Falcons were going to pick on the Bears with the tight end position, and as soon as they scored that touchdown, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know how that kind of got stopped in its tracks. I really don't, because it was really setting things up.
Underrated losses. When I went back and I thought about it, and when the Falcons offense started to grind to a halt is when Gage got hurt. All of a sudden you lost that slot player underneath that was starting to hurt the Bears a little bit, and then you really only have to concentrate on 2 guys, Hurst and Ridley, rather than 3. And that's when I kind of started to notice the Falcons offense take a few steps backwards. It didn't completely shut down, but it was just missing something a little bit rest of the way. And I think Ryan had trouble finding things underneath that he was finding in the first half.
Right. And I mean, the other thing, and we haven't said it at all in this, but it is something that I think everybody needs to keep in mind about this game, is Julio Jones wasn't out there either. This wasn't a 100% at full strength Falcons team. For all we know, things could have been much worse for the Bears. As we know, they barely made it out by the thinnest of hairs. And again, with this game, week 4 is going to be the big test. We finally, in my mind, get the quarterback that I think a lot of fans feel is going to be that missing piece. And again, another comment here, which does make a lot of sense. And even how we discussed this, they wanted Mitch to be the guy to start, see how it goes, and then be easier to pull the plug versus pulling the plug on Foles. We're at this point now where if Nick Foles doesn't get the job done, then there's going to be like where do you go after that? I mean, that's the real question, is where do you go after a falter like that? Because really the Colts defense is very good as well, so it's not going to be a cakewalk type situation that the Falcons defense has allowed to every opponent that they've had so far this year. So it's not going to be easy. Even if it's at home, it's not going to be easy for the Bears to come away with a victory here. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and just hearing what some of the players were saying about everything and just how the game came together, and hearing how there was a lot of ad-libbing and Foles being ready and willing to, do whatever it took instead of sticking to the script of the specific play to make the play happen, that this will open things up, that we will see what we saw in the fourth quarter. Again, I don't want to feel like a broken record, because I feel like this is almost how I felt in the Detroit game in the fourth quarter too, where it's like, okay, everything came together. We'll be good moving forward. And between hoping for that, knowing that the play calling is always going to have its limitations, I'm stuck in this really strange, like, purgatory of not knowing what's going to happen or when it's going to happen.
Well, and that was going to be my question. I guess the first comment I make is, the first thing I do if I'm Nagy is I come out and I say Foles is my starter for the rest of the year. That's the first thing I say, is Foles is the guy the rest of the year unless he gets hurt. And that's who we're going with. We gave Mitch a shot, but now moving forward, it's Foles. And to your point, I guess I was the last question I had for us on this recap was, who or what is this team? And we're near to go Lovie Smith. We're nearly a quarter into the season, and we still have no idea who or what this team is, what they're about, what they stand for. Right now, to me, this team just feels like a team that's going to be just good enough to not allow us to draft guys like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, which is going to infuriate me. So I don't know who or what this team is right now, and it has no identity, because you don't know who your quarterback is, and I have real questions about the competency of the coaching. I really feel like this team doesn't have much of a personality.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird saying that, because I honestly felt after the first 2 games that it was a run first team, that the way that things were being set up in terms of Matt Nagy not excuse me, wow, allergies, not willing to abandon the run in situations where a year ago it would have been pass. And here we are in today, didn't really follow kind of what we had seen in the first 2 games. And really it couldn't, to an extent. And I do give some credit there that, I mean, the running game just wasn't working like at all today. And a lot of that falls with the offensive line that just did not work well in the run game. I don't know what it was, because we saw in the previous 2 weeks that they could get it done. They could open up holes, and they could get decent running plays to Montgomery, to Cohen, to Patterson even. And that just wasn't there today. So I don't know. It is weird. The identity thing needs to be figured out sooner rather than later. I do agree with you in that, but I feel as though, given how quickly the Bears were able to move the ball and just how the defense fed off of the rejuvenation of the offense, it does give me a lot of hope heading into next week and hopefully putting together a competitive game from beginning to end instead of this, again, hodgepodge. We're good, we're bad, we're good, we're bad. Oh, we don't know what's going to happen next possession.
And it will be, and this is a guy you and I haven't been high on, but it will be interesting to see. And we haven't even touched on this yet, but so this is more of almost a kind of a cliff notes to this entire deal is Cohen being gone for the rest of the year with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how the team adjusts from there. Now, granted, he wasn't putting up great numbers this year. I think coming into today's game, he had 75 yards of total offense. So he had really been a non-factor through the first 2 weeks, but I know Nagy loves him, and I know he likes trying to use him in different ways. So it'll be interesting to see how they cope with that loss. But again, yeah, I think the biggest thing you can do is, if we're sitting here talking about we don't know what the identity of the team is, name a quarterback for the rest of the year. Then you start basing your identity around that. Playing this game week in and week out where you're not sure, and now Nagy has to think about who he's going back to. I think the biggest thing he can do to help establish a team identity, name your starter. Just name him for the rest of the year. And he's our guy come hell or high water. This is who we are as a football team. This is our leader for the rest of the year. And then you go around that. This isn't sustainable. We say this every single week, is at some point, this isn't sustainable. I know the idea in the NFL is to quote unquote win football games and move forward. The point of the NFL is to win a Super Bowl. This isn't a Super Bowl winning formula right now. So the Bears need to figure it out. And they need to figure out who they are and what they're good at and what they're going to do moving forward. And playing, roulette with the quarterback situation is not the way to do it.
Yeah, I mean the fact that there was hesitancy in naming a quarterback or moving forward with Foles as the starter for next week, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't do you any good. It's not going to throw the Colts off of their game in trying to think, who are they going to start next week, Mitch Trubisky or Nick Foles? I don't know. Like, that does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. So I don't know.
I'm so on board that I don't think Matt Nagy's a very good football coach. I just truly don't think he is. I've been there since the tail end of 2018. I was there most of last year. I'm not sold on him. I'm just not.
So he's got some work to do to gain that. In your mind.
Well, you've seen his press conferences, right?
Yeah. and to think, it's like we just had like all this wool pulled over our eyes in 2018. It's like, we're good. We got everything rolling here, and it's again hopeful, I think, is the word. Heading out of this one, just again seeing how well the offense moved the ball down the field, again, allowing other playmakers, despite some hiccups along the way, as we all know, make plays and again, score points, score touchdowns. God forbid, it's instead of getting stalled at the 20.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was good to see in the fourth quarter and most of the second half, but I guess we'll see tomorrow or Tuesday whenever Nagy names the starter. But like I said, when he does it, I hope he does it for the rest of the season, not just a week by week basis.
Right. I mean, that wouldn't accomplish anything. I'd be shocked if he did take that avenue. But at this point, it needs to be Nick Foles' offense, Nick Foles' team, until he proves that he is not capable, and then it's, oh crap, where do the Bears go from here?
Tyler Bray, chaos, let's go.
We'll see what does happen. Again, the Colts coming to town next Sunday afternoon. Phillip Rivers, a pocket passer extraordinaire, behind arguably his best offensive line he's ever played with, and a team that, again, is very good. We'll see if the Bears can string together some decent play and 4-0 finish the quarter of the season.
God bless you,
4-0.
Lovey.
Yeah, Lovey ain't playing football yet, so we'll
Nick is our
him.
quarterback. Give me that tomorrow. Nick is our quarterback. Give me some good Lovey quips tomorrow.
We'll just dub him over. We got to find a place where he says that. So, it's going to be a very interesting week, but again, positivity all the way around in terms of hopefully moving towards a more well-developed offense that can move the ball down the field, and we will roll from there. So we will be back on Thursday night with a new episode of The Bear Front. Also, stay tuned on Wednesday night for Keeping It 100 with Draft Dr. Phil and Shane the Smartest Man Marsaw. They will be with you for a few hours, breaking everything down. I believe they have Mark Grody from WBBM 780 Bears coverage that will be joining them on Wednesday. So a lot of stuff happening here on ChiCitySports.com as we get you all ready for kickoff next Sunday at Soldier Field. So for Nick Betting, I'm Steven Johnson. Thank you for watching us this evening across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And we will talk to you later this week for a new episode of the Bear Front Podcast. Bear down, everybody.